Hello, good morning. Someone was just saying to me that one of the most beautiful things about this moment is the networking that's going on and people getting reacquainted and making new friends. So for that, I'm extremely happy to see everyone hanging out talking. There will probably be some more people filing in as we get rolling, but I figured we'd get this started. I know people have other places they want to be today, and I'm grateful for all of you who are here. So please feel free to grab a seat. Some refreshments in the back. If you need a restroom, for those of you who haven't been here before, out this door to the left, on the left, you'll find the restrooms. We will be taking a break during this session, so if you do have to use the restroom, you're welcome to go anytime, but we will be taking a break. My name is Jonas Werner, and welcome to the Freeport Community Energy Forum. I'm an associate broker for Balsam Realty, a independent boutique realty firm here in Freeport. We've held a handful of events here at Balsam Realty. We found that in our work, a lot of our clients were very interested in topics that were not always easy to get great answers to. And so a few years ago, we started holding events here. I think the first one we did was right around when we were starting to come out of COVID, and we kind of based the events based on what the current vibe is. So that was about native plants and invasive species. It was a big chicken craze back then, so we had someone come and talk about how to have backyard chickens. That was a wonderful event. Our next home energy event was Freeport Energy Mythbusters. One of the questions we hope to probably answer was, will global warming stop ice storms? We did not get to hold that event because it was canceled because of an ice storm. And that brings us to today, our third energy forum here in Freeport, which is appropriately focused on an idea that a lot of us think about here, and that is home energy independence and resilience in our homes for our energy. I am very grateful to FCS for being one of our partners and allowing us to use their wonderful space here at the Bradley Room. And I'm also very grateful to our sponsors, Acadia Insulation. Thank you so much for your support of this event. We could not do this without our partners and our sponsors, so thank you so much. I would like to take a moment just to allow two of our partners to introduce themselves. First, I would bring up, please, Naomi Beal from Passive House, who can tell you why she's involved and a little bit about what she and her firm do for homeowners here in Maine. Naomi Beal.
Thanks, Jonas. Nice to be here. For quick clarification, passivhausMAINE is not a firm. We are a nonprofit, and we're based right here in Freeport. We newly have a physical space right behind Gap, between Gap and Erie. We took over a commercial space that has been vacant for 13 years, and we're really happy to be there for our trainings. Thank you. We have our trainings on the first floor and our offices on the second. We are a statewide organization. We provide varying kinds of trainings across the state, literally from Fort Kent to York, Greenville to Machias. That's one of our main projects. Another project that we have is represented by Mika right in the back of the room. retrofitMAINE is focused on scaling low-income retrofits and moderate and any income as well, but especially we're started by a federal grant from a few years ago that helped us create a framework to really reach people who maybe aren't able to access the grants that exist, the rebates that exist, the incentives that already exist. And we saw our job as being a facilitator, basically, reaching people through Freeport Community Services. We have another program, excuse me, in Lewiston with Community Concepts and excuse me, and just reaching our the people that need that help. So talk to Mika about that program. It's awesome. We also do advocacy. We have a variety of programs. A month ago, we had our annual forum that takes place down in Portland that is basically architects, builders, engineers, and others who come together for lectures and meetings. We have site walks through the year and lectures through the year, a retrofit symposium in the fall. So that's right here in Freeport. Really encourage everyone in the town to be engaged in that, and just having the moment at the mic right now and knowing that it's being recorded, I just really, really, really encourage the town of Freeport to engage in this work and in this event especially, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I guess I'll hand over the mic back to Jonas. Thanks.
Thank you, Naomi, very much. The next person I'd like to introduce is Laura Hench from Freeport Climate Action Now. Definitely one of the most active groups we have here in Freeport, working for all of our benefits. Laura, do you want to come up and say hi?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. As Jonas said, I'm Laura Hench, and I'm with Freeport Climate Action Now. If those of you who have never heard of us, probably no one in the room is in that category, but we are a group of volunteers in Freeport who care deeply about our community and about responding to the climate crisis in meaningful and practical ways. One thing we've learned is that while climate change is a global challenge, many of the solutions start locally, right in our homes and neighborhoods. The choices we make about how we heat, cool, and power our homes really do matter. That's why today's event is so important. We are here to learn about technologies that are already helping thousands of Mainers move away from fossil fuels and toward cleaner, more efficient energy. Solar power and heat pumps are two ways to reduce carbon emissions, increase energy independence, and lower long-term energy costs. At FCAN, we believe that communities like ours can play a real role in building a more sustainable future. Every home that switches to cleaner energy is part of that process. So thank you for being here this morning, for your curiosity and your interest. I hope you leave with some new ideas, some useful information, and maybe some inspiration for what might be possible in your own home. Thanks again, and I'm looking forward to learning with you today.
Thank you so much, Laura. Everybody probably has a program, and in that program, there's a lot of information about what we're going to do today and some bios about our speakers, so I don't want to bore you with any of that. So let's just keep on rolling. I'd like to next introduce our keynote speaker, and I am so pleased that she is welcome to join us, has been asked to join us and agreed to. She's always agreeable. Our keynote speaker this morning represents Freeport in the House of Maine Representatives and chairs the House Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee. She's serving her third term, I can't believe it, third term in Congress for us, and brings deep expertise in state energy policy, clean energy legislation, and the programs available to Maine homeowners. Please welcome my personal friend and a friend to all of Freeport, Representative Melanie Sachs.
Okay, let's be clear, that was not an announcement that I'm running for Congress. I am your state representative in the House, here in the Maine House, and I'm grateful to be so. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. My name is Melanie Sachs. I have been a very proud resident of Freeport for several decades, and I want to thank Freeport Climate Action Now, passivhausMAINE, Balsam Realty, and Freeport Community Services for hosting this Freeport Energy Community Forum this morning and inviting me to be part of this event. It's so wonderful to see people here who care deeply about energy, affordability, and the future of our community. So before we talk about policy or legislation, which is what I was asked to come here today, I wanted to start with something simple to ground us. For every single person in this room knows what it's like to open an energy bill in the middle of a Maine winter or a snowy day in March. You look at that number, you look at the thermostat, and you start doing the math in your head. I want to remind people, I'm a clinical social worker who used to run this very organization. Those conversations happened on a daily basis, and I know they have happened for you too. Those conversations of, can you afford to keep the heat where it is? Should we turn it down a few degrees? What's our budget? What else in the budget can give because of that energy bill? For too many Maine families, including those here in Freeport, that moment has become routine. And that's exactly why conversations like the one we're having here today matter so very much. Because energy costs show up everywhere in our lives. They show up in our electric bills, our heating bills, and even the price of our groceries. For example, more than 60% of Maine homes still rely on heating oil, making us the most oil-dependent state in the country. Add to that in a place like Maine with long winters and an aging housing stock, energy isn't optional, it's essential. So that means that Maine households in particular are especially vulnerable to global fuel price spikes and volatility. What happens internationally affects us locally, and I see that all the time as the chair of EUT. You only need to look at recent events in the world to see that connection. The instability in the global energy markets do have immediate consequences right here at home. I want to note that the acting commissioner of DOER just emailed us that in the past week, heating oil has risen nearly 23% in 1 week. Kerosene, 17%, and even propane has risen. These increases matter to Maine families. They affect those household budgets immediately. So over the past few years, as the chair of the Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee, I will say the first woman to hold that role since the 1970s, I've been working with all of my colleagues on a simple but powerful goal. How do we lower energy costs for Maine families today while building a system that keeps costs stable in the future? Both of those things. And many of our partners here today are part of those solutions. So I want to share some of the progress, because there always is progress in Augusta, highlight some legislation currently under debate, and talk about why these policies matter for communities in Freeport and for Mainers across the state. So specifically, right now we're in the short session. We go from January until, we say, April 15th. I just got asked if that's real. I think it is, April 15th. So this is our short session. I wanted to highlight a few bills you may not have heard about. One is a bill currently moving through that is an act to exempt the sales tax from the sale and delivery of all residential electricity. Think about that. We actually tax the thing we're encouraging more of, which is electricity, right? This proposal was sponsored by my colleague on Energy, Utilities, Technology, who is in the adjoining district, Kilton Webb, who represents Pownell and Durham. Great new member to the legislature. That removes the state sales tax from all residential electricity beginning on July 1st. It's a simple reality, right? That energy costs are not only an infrastructure issue, that household budget issue. So removing the sales tax from electricity would provide immediate financial relief for families struggling with those high energy bills. It also, not coincidentally, makes it easier for households to adopt many of the technologies that you'll hear today, like heat pumps, solar electrified heating systems, and other energy saving solutions. A win-win, because it will improve their return on investment. I'm pleased to tell you that that bill just passed the House unanimously with bipartisan support. Fingers crossed. Another innovative proposal that came out of my committee is 1730. It allows small plug-in solar systems that connect directly to a standard electrical outlet. I see FCAN founder going, woohoo, right? These systems, if you haven't heard about them, are used widely across Europe and are designed to make solar power more accessible. So for the average household, testimony before our committee suggested that, for example, a 1,200 watt plug-in solar system could reduce electricity bills by 21%. It's enormous. And what makes this proposal incredibly exciting is its accessibility. These units are sold at like their equivalent of Lowe's or Freeport Hardware. You don't have to own a roof. You don't have to invest in a huge solar installation unless you want to. Renters, apartment dwellers, and some homeowners alike could participate in generating their own electricity and lowering their own bills with this incredibly accessible new technology. Very exciting. I want to just highlight a bill that I sponsored last session that did pass, that I found out that under Public Utility Commission rules, utilities can require deposits of new customers for several reasons. Most is because you have a demonstrated history of non-payment or default, so they require a deposit. But there was one part of this rule that required a deposit simply because the new customers stated they had no income. And that deposit could be as high as 2 months of the highest expected utility bill for that residence over the last 12 years. So it could be in the middle of winter. Thousands of dollars required for a deposit for somebody who says they have no income. Now, why would they maybe, when asked by the utility, say they have no income? Could be a gig worker with fluctuating earnings, happens quite a bit. Could be a retiree living on Social Security who doesn't consider that income because it's not something they're working for. That happened a lot, we found out, with Maine AARP. Could be an artist. It could be somebody new to an area who hadn't found employment yet. In fact, my Eagle Scout was moving to Bangor and he hadn't started his job yet. He put up his Versant utility. He could have said, I don't have any income yet, because he wasn't starting his brand new job until the next week. I told him to tell him they had a job so that he didn't have that, right? Organizations like Preble Street's anti-trafficking services program told us as many as 90% of the survivors they work with would not be able to afford those deposits, yet they often don't disclose their full circumstances to a utility customer representative. Yet they still need that electricity to rebuild their lives, because financial hardship does not automatically make somebody a credit risk. And that's what this rule was saying. Because you're poor, you are a risk. And that simply wasn't true when I dug into the data. So I'm proud to say that what I considered a very discriminatory provision was removed from the rules as a result of this legislation, which is really important. So I could talk forever, I will not, but EUT has worked on a lot of broader initiatives designed to help lower energy costs. So making the efficient more resilient, the grid more efficient and resilient, exploring emergency technologies, maybe like geothermal, and reforming some regulatory structures to improve long-term energy planning, including transforming the governor's energy office into the Department of Energy Resources, which may seem like a small thing, but it's actually quite big. Elevating this to a department strengthens Maine's ability to plan and coordinate energy policy for the long term. Interestingly, this idea was supported both by Governor LePage and Governor Mills, a rare agreement on energy policy with those two administrations. Particularly given that our statutory goals is 100% renewable by 2040, we need this kind of consistency to make sure that we keep our goals. Lastly, I want to talk about one little bill you may have heard about that I recently put forward, addressing one of the biggest emerging energy issues in Maine, which is large-scale data centers. Maybe you've heard of it. There's been recent proposals in places like Wisconsin and Lewiston that were soundly rejected by their communities. These projects appeared with very little notice, raising questions about potential impacts on energy demand, ratepayer cost, environmental resources, and local communities. These modern centers require enormous amounts of electricity and cooling infrastructure. So I introduced a bill, LD 307, which would establish what I'm calling the Maine Data Center Coordination Council. That council is comprised of a lot of stakeholders here in Maine to review Maine's regulatory framework in a thoughtful and transparent way before large-scale development moves forward. We have that opportunity to pause, to take a look and make sure our regulatory environment is such that we can benefit if needed from these things. And I will say that similar bills and temporary moratoriums, because this is a temporary pause until next fall, they've been proposed in states across the political spectrum, I will note, New Hampshire, Vermont, Oklahoma, South Dakota, not exactly blue, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and New York. So it's an approach that, because communities are recognizing the enormous impact these facilities can have on energy systems, on our local resources, and on ratepayers. So we have the opportunity to plan carefully and get it right. That bill will be going to the House and Senate shortly. We will see. Stay tuned. So I want to note that while policy debates in Augusta can feel very distant, clearly their impact is felt right here in communities like Freeport. When we promote policies that invest in energy efficiency, local renewable energy, and smarter grid planning with increased resilience, we move toward an energy system that's locally produced, more predictable in price, and less vulnerable to global shocks. Energy efficiency programs, heat pumps installation, solar weatherization projects are already helping families here in Freeport reduce their bills, because the cheapest energy is energy we don't have to use. I will say that. And so throughout the rest of today's forum, you'll hear from local experts about these amazing local innovative programs and technologies that make that possible. So let me leave you with this thought. Energy policy can feel technical. It can involve very complicated systems and regulation and long-term planning. But at the end of the day, the real question is simple. Who should Maine's energy system work for? Should it work for distant fuel markets and unpredictable global prices? Or should it work for the people who actually live here? For the families heating their homes in January, for small businesses trying to keep their doors open, for the seniors who built our communities and want to stay in them, because when we design an energy system that works for Maine people, one that is more efficient, more local, and more affordable, we aren't just lowering bills. We are strengthening our communities, we're strengthening our economy, and we're building a future where Maine families right here in Freeport can thrive. And that is a future worth working for. Thank you.
Now I'm wishing she would run again. I know we don't have much time, but did anyone have any questions for Melanie, if she was willing to answer any? I know I did, yes. Let me get a microphone. Coming right over. Would you mind?
Oh, no, of course not. I figured that was all you wanted
voice?
to hear. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We met quite a few years ago
Yes, we did.
in the park with the senior president. Okay. Anyway, my question is this. I listened to you and I cannot disagree with anything that you have said.
How unusual. Okay, keep going. I love you. Keep going. Yes.
I would like to suggest that probably not in a short session, but for the next one, that you people think about deregulating. I call it deregulating because the thing is, I live in a condo development and each one of them is different. So I can only speak for what I am experiencing. The thing is, when we looked for a place to live in that development, we sat for hours on end at one particular unit that we bought. Reason? It faced the south. So we wanted to put up panels. That is a no-no.
Oh,
You,
in your condo. That's a no-no in your condo unit?
I think it is throughout the state. But if you say in your next year that it should be allowed, okay, then they have no choice. All right?
Yeah.
Furthermore, you talked about the new panels that are in use in Europe.
The solar plug-in, yeah.
Yes, that is a no-no right now for me. I'd like to have you address that, please. Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you. And I do know that for some particular housing developments, that is more the restriction rather than a state regulation, because I will say home rule really does go over most things. So I would encourage you to definitely check with your homeowners association, because I do not think it's a state regulation. And my hope is that the plug-in solar piece is really going to help, because it should be no greater than many other electrical appliances you have in your home, from what we were told in our testimony. So we can definitely talk. I will also note I'm not running again next year, so you will have the opportunity to question many candidates, hopefully, and make sure that they are advancing what you are thinking is important. Yes.
Good morning. Hi, Chris Spahalski.
Hi.
Hi. In Europe and Asia, they're able to use heat pumps powered by a refrigerant called R290. It's also propane, which works in your gas grill, but it happens to be a great, very efficient refrigerant. So essentially, your heat pump uses less electricity. I think Oregon or Washington State was the first to attempt approval of the quantities that's used inside a space heating heat pump. Is anybody in Maine up to date and trying to promote the use of this equipment that works great in Europe and Asia in Maine?
Yeah, I have not heard of that, but that's very interesting.
We will have some heat pump specialists that might be able to help out with an answer to that.
Hasn't come before my committee, but that doesn't mean that some folks are not.
One moment.
Lots of carbon and lots of methane, so do we really want to use propane? Do we really want to use propane? Isn't it lots of carbon and lots of methane?
It's just staying inside the machine, just like the refrigerants that are used now. The refrigerant is kept inside the machine. You're not using it up.
I just had one question myself, and it was about data centers. One of the things that I hear a lot about with data centers is that, like in the Northeast, for example, around Pennsylvania, that area, they put in some data centers. There's reports that energy bills have been skyrocketing in the areas where the data centers have gone. And then I also spend a lot of time reading Bloomberg, watching Fox News, and from what I'm gleaning, there's a lot of support behind the idea that the data centers will actually be producing their own energy, and there'll be a net benefit to the grid and to Maine ratepayers. Is there any truth behind that you know of? Will data centers, if one moves to Maine, will they be making their own energy, or will they be drawing off our grid?
So right now, we don't have any regulations around that, which is one of the reasons that the Maine Data Center Coordination Council is so important. Because if that is a requirement that we would like to have, then we need to put that in statute before these things are permitted. My understanding, for example, we have had 2 projects that have come before us that are known. There are others still in the speculative space. But one said, well, we're going to bring hydrofuel. But wait a minute, let's dig in, and what they're actually going to do is use diesel and natural gas generators that are going to be trucked in for an unspecified amount of time before they get to hydrofuel. That is a cost causer. Natural gas is actually quite restricted in Maine already, and so we really need to take a look at that. But they'll lead with the hydrofuel cell. But when you dig a little closer, that's not the case. For the one in J, you may have read the news story that said they're going to have solar. Solar is far out. What they actually have said they are going to do is buy all of the available hydropower and also interconnect in the grid. The J mill had an interconnection agreement of 82 megawatts. What is proposed for this center is 150 to 255 megawatts. To put that in perspective, Maine uses about 1,800 megawatts for the entire state in a day. And we're going to plop in a 255 megawatt data center. Again, maybe that's the right site. I grew up in the area. My dad worked at the mill. There could be opportunities there. But all we are asking with this bill is let's get the regulatory framework right, because the impact to ratepayers, we have seen cautionary tales throughout the country of what happens when you invite folks in and don't take the time to really make sure. So do we want to add things to our DEP SLOTA permits? Do we want to do an impact fee? Do we want to require them? Do we want to make sure that the utilities have to do for their load forecasts? Be transparent about that data, because when they come back and say, well, we need grid upgrades, which is going to impact the ratepayer, we want to see the data that they used for their forecasts in the beginning. I keep saying this is incredibly complicated. It is not about saying absolutely no to economic development, if it makes sense. It's saying, let's get our regulatory systems right. Give us the chance to do that, because we have that opportunity. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. We are lucky people. All right. So now we're going to get to our panels. Melanie, thank you so much. So grateful for your time. Thank you. Now we're going to get to our panels. We're going to get to hear from some experts in different fields, and then maybe get to ask them some questions and have some conversations. Our first panel takes a look at home energy generation, solar, storage, geothermal, and the technology that makes energy independence possible for Maine homeowners. I'd like to first introduce Nate Kronauer, Education and Outreach Coordinator at the Maine Solar Solutions, and Alan Caron, founder of Climate Work Maine. Please welcome them. And you guys are welcome to present from the table, from here, wherever you're comfortable.
All right, I'm going to try not to yell into the mic here. How's that? Is that too loud, or is that good? Good? Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Nate Kronauer. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator for Maine Solar Solutions. We're here today to talk about kind of an introductory look at solar. We're going to talk about sort of the accessibility and kind of maybe dispel some of misconceptions and get some answers about how solar works in Maine. So just a little bit of background about Maine Solar Solutions, for today's discussion. We'll be talking about how solar systems work in Maine, specifically the net metering policy, and we'll look at sort of the financing options and sort of how much this all costs in the end. So just some background information about Maine Solar. We've been in business for since about 2012. We're about 45 employees. 3,500 installations, and really the types of projects that we focus on, mainly grid-tied, but we also do off-grid, residential, commercial, and new construction. So when we're talking about solar, we're looking at the key benefits, and really it's about fixing the cost of electricity sort of by pre-purchasing a lifetime's worth of production. So we'll kind of get into how that works as we move on. But really the goal is once your system pays for itself, you're essentially going to not be paying an electric bill. If you're grid tied, you'll still be connected to the grid, so you'll have that connection fee. But the goal is to look at your home's individual usage, considering things like heat pumps, electrical additions that are going to increase the load, and then really sizing the system to offset 100% of that, not too much, not too little, and we'll get into that further along as well. And I think we can all agree solar and these sort of renewable technologies also help our environment, our community, by reducing carbon emissions. So it's a savings, but it's also about saving the planet little by little with these installations. So this is a great diagram. This is going to explain how net metering works. Basically, you have the sun, and that's going to be hitting the panels, generating your electric charge. That charge is going to be converted from DC to AC, and then will be connected to the service panel. Basically, all of the electricity that your panels are producing are going to satisfy the load that your house requires. And net metering really, how they incentivize it in Maine is any excess credits that you produce are going to be basically sent back out to the grid and kept track of as a net metering credit. So you'll basically, in the summertime, you'll get a lot of sun, you're probably going to overproduce what your house is using, and so you're going to sort of bank those credits on a 12-month rolling basis. And so you'll have an allotment, what you produce in December, the next year you'll have that bank of credits to work with. And then anything additionally that you use, you will be paying the difference for that electrical rate. So the credits, I sort of got into this a little bit. The credits save you money. It's a 1-to-1 kilowatt hour equivalent. So any, if you're putting 2 kilowatt hours out on the grid, you're going to be able to pull that same amount back when it's nighttime or when your panels aren't producing. So let's say really stormy weather or snow covering the panels. And these credits are really designed to create an incentive. Obviously, we have long winters in Maine, short sun hours, but long sun exposure in the summer. So really the goal is to bank these credits in the sunnier seasons so you can use them when the winter time comes around. And that's all kept track of on your bill, so you'll be able to access those credits that way. So I touched a little bit on it. When it comes to the design, each business or property is different. Everybody has different sun exposure, different shading. These are kind of the factors that we're really going to be looking for. So first and foremost, you want to see what's your house using, what are you planning on using, and that's going to help determine the size of the system that you're going to need to produce that power. The available space on your roof, so we'll go into a little bit. It doesn't have to be on the roof, but really it's a pre-existing structure. You get a nice height and you usually get nice sun exposure. The pitch of the roof, the angle, obviously around like 35, 40 degrees is ideal, but it really doesn't have to be. Solar isn't necessarily like a one size fits all. You can really customize and really design a system that works for your specific location. Shade readings, obviously, you don't want too much shade. That's something that's going to be looked at, and I'll kind of get into how we determine that stuff. So, most often these systems, they're designed to offset your home's annual usage, so what you're using every year. And we basically calculate that. We use a cool drone program called Scanifly. There's many different ways to gather this information. This is just one way to do it. And so we fly up above the property. It gets all sorts of readings from sun exposure to shade. It creates a 3D model. So if you have like a big tree that's casting some shade over, you say, can we digitally remove that tree and see how it affects the production of the site? So that's a pretty cool tool that we use there. And all those factors are going to basically go into how we design your potential system. So things to consider, heat pumps, heat pump hot water heaters, electric cars, things that are going to increase the load. If you have a usage that is a certain amount and then you get panels and then add on a couple heat pumps and a hot tub, you're going to notice that increases the amount of power. So you might see, I'm actually paying a little more, and then we'll kind of get into what did you add? What's the consumption like? We kind of went into a little bit of this, but a big question is, what if my house doesn't face directly south? That's okay. That's actually one of the reasons why those assessments are so important, because you can really see what you're working with exposure. You can also do ground mounts, so it doesn't necessarily always have to be on the roof. You can do an independent structure in a field. And then we talked about the shading. It doesn't have to be on the roof, but it's most commonly just because it tends to be pre-existing structure, and you get good sun exposure. So this is a good question. Do grid-tied solar systems require batteries? And the answer is no. You sort of think of the grid as your battery with those credits. So instead of, if you had an off-grid system, with a battery, you're basically, that is all that excess power that your panels are producing are going to be stored there to be used, at night and when the panels aren't producing. But if you are attached to the grid with solar, and the power goes out, you actually will lose power. Basically, the way the system is set up is that power has to go somewhere, and if you don't have a storage device, it basically has to go back out to the grid. So the inverter has a switch that when the power goes out, we don't want to be feeding out, live power out into the lines. So there's a switch that will shut off. Unless you have a battery, then the battery would switch to power your home. So, the reasons of why people would go for solar batteries, it's, energy independence, that resilience. You can have some leeway when the power goes out, or if you want to be completely off the grid, you don't want to be subject to, utility rate hikes. That's, certainly an option. The typical lifespan for a Powerwall or a Franklin W battery or Solar Edge battery, it's really, can be about a day to 2, depending on your usage. Really heavy usage, you might drain in 12 hours or so. So it really depends on what you're trying to power. This is more just to keep, the refrigeration going, sort of these, vital loads for the home. So we kind of talked about that with off-grid already. I don't want to take up too much time because I know we have other presenters here. So, return on investment, this is kind of one of the big pieces of, people know the environmental benefits, but really the financial benefits are one of the biggest reasons for going solar. So your return on investment, it basically depends on the cost of electricity. So the more you're paying in electricity, if you have a solar system, you're less subject to the price hikes as they go on. So if the price of electricity goes up, you're basically going to be paying your system off faster because you're going to be producing that energy. The efficiency of the site will definitely, that's something that we'll find in the assessment. We're really going to try and find the best option that's going to get you the most power that fits for your home. Choice of panels. There's different wattages with panels, different aesthetic looks of panels. They're all pretty comparable, but you usually will have an option to see which kinds of panels you like. There's like the all black panels, some people like those, and then there's the traditional sort of grid style panels. So this is a pretty good snapshot of what an average Maine home is. Monthly electrical usage about 650 kilowatt hours. 185 is the average electric bill. This is, for this size system, we have 14 panels, and then this is the total system cost. And I think an important, ROI period, a common one is, 10 to 12 years, which for something that's going to be producing power for, essentially your home's lifetime, that's a pretty good payback period. And solar systems, they're designed to produce for 30 plus years. They're warranted for 30 years. There's a slight, production degradation over time, but when you factor in the, cost of electricity rates, it actually isn't going to hurt the investment too much. And these are the main options for, paying for these in financing, cash upfront options, solar loans, and then Propel, which is an interesting financial option that we're finding that we can still take access of the commercial tax credit. As many of us know, the residential solar tax credit went away on the beginning of the year. So this is kind of an avenue that we have, that the industry has made to kind of pass off those incentives to residential customers. So really the bottom line is that the goal of this was to sort of make solar seem more accessible. I think sometimes people can see like a price tag or there's all these different types of solar and kind of creates confusion. But really investments like these are going to benefit you in the long run. Like I said about that return on investment, that's, you think about other large investments and you think of what you get back from those investments. I think solar is something that you actually will see a continuous return on that, as opposed to a lot of other large-scale, expensive home design retrofits. Questions? And for Alan as well, yeah.
Well, not Alan
I was thinking we might hold questions until
sure.
after Alan
Sure.
talks, but yeah. Do you want to write down?
No, it's a real quick.
Go ahead.
Bob Stevens, Nate, how do you pass along the commercial credit to a residential, to the residential owner?
So yeah, let me see. I can go back to that slide here. So we can get it up on the. So the way that it works is Propel is basically a financing partner through SunSource. They will sort of take ownership of the system, and you'll basically buy back ownership. What's nice is the avenue of that is a lot shorter, which you can get it in about 5 years to. Instead of like a lease where they sort of own that technology and sort of have easement, you can actually own the system and sort of buy it back from them. So it's kind of a workaround in order to, they're passing along the 30% commercial tax credit that they're getting onto the customer.
And how long does that credit last?
I think 2032, the commercial tax credit.
Bring up Alan, and then if you all have any more, Nate, thank you
yeah,
so
thank you.
much. I appreciate you. We'll bring up Alan Karen. Thank you so much for being here again. He's the founder of Climate Work Maine, also Grow Smart Maine. He's a builder who has a lot of expertise in integrated energy independence, and hopefully he will be able to explain what in the world that means.
I've been wanting to lower this for a while, watching all the not really tall speakers. So, good morning. It's great to be here. You're saving me from having to fix a lamp this morning, which I very much appreciate. And I had a great event this morning when I was here. This has not happened to me before, but I knew it was inevitable. For years, I would always introduce my wife at events in which I was speaking. Today, somebody said, I know your name. You're married to Christina Egan, which was fantastic. If you don't know Christina, she's the head of GP Cog and is what I call a belovable force of nature in the state. And my great achievement in life was to bring her from Massachusetts to Maine, so you're welcome. By the way, I want to just pitch for a minute something that's happening on Thursday. If you're not signed up for it, you might want to think about it. Climate Work Maine is an organization of businesses taking action on climate. And that's a recognition that there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of white papers, there's a lot of projections, there's 10-year plans. What matters in the end is action and measurable action. So we created that organization. It has some of the state's largest businesses, many small and medium-sized businesses, some in this room. And on Thursday, we're doing our annual summit in Portland. It'll be 300 to 400 people. We're bringing in some national leaders on climate, but also lots of great folks in the state. So if you're interested in this policy discussion or the practical, you might want to go to climateworkmaine.org and take a look at this. It's this Thursday, so there's still tickets available. There's an extraordinary thing happening with this technology right now. By the way, I think I'm the consumer representative today, so you might get a slightly different point of view from some of the stuff. But there's a great thing happening in the technology that we're all in favor of. And that is that the price is dropping and the efficiency is increasing. The way to think about this is the way you might think about your desktop computer over the last 30 years. Those of us who were in business then remember it was like $2,000 to buy a computer with free RAM. So, the price has continually dropped and the power has continually increased, right? This is exactly the same trend line that is happening with heat pumps, with batteries, with solar panels, at different rates of speed. But the reason why I'm mentioning that as a context, and this is what we're talking about on Thursday, it's now got to the point where people are buying things who don't believe that climate change is real. They're installing heat pumps because they cost less. So we have to adjust our language, and we're all doing that in different ways. But this is a real revolution in the technologies driving it. So there's going to be a huge debate, and there is, and you heard some of it from Melanie. Thank you, Melanie, if you're still here, for the great work you're doing. There's a huge debate that's going to occur over the next couple of years in the legislature around the state. And it's all about cost, the cost of electricity. We are the low-cost people. Worldwide now, there's far more investment in solar and wind than there is in fossil fuel to generate energy. The lines have crossed. We're now the low-cost guys. So everybody wants to adjust to that understanding. Now, on technology, we have a house a couple of miles from here. We've done all we can do. We have solar panels. We have heat pumps, totally done with heat pumps. We have now batteries. We have 2 EVs. So we've done everything we want to do. And I'm telling that story not to brag, but to say that everybody in this room who has the capacity to do something should do it, right? Don't wait for the perfect technology. By the way, there is a wave of technology that's both in batteries and in EVs, which are related. We're just about to do a quantum leap in technology on those 2 things. And it's solid-state batteries primarily, which are now for the first time in the world in production. That will bring EV ranges up to 800,000 miles and charge in 5 minutes. So this trend line is going to accelerate. Anyway, so we've done all these things. So I want to say that if you're able to afford things, here's the order in which I would invest or urge you to invest. Heat pumps, absolutely, the first place to go. I have a small building that I built 4 or 5 years ago up in central Maine, which is the only area I build in. I put a gas radiant heat in one floor of that house, and I put heat pumps in the other floor. The heat pump floor was much bigger, a vaulted ceiling, had a lot more volume. At the end of 2 years, the cost for the heat pump floor was 1/2 the cost of the gas-fired radiant floors. 1/2. That wasn't because of any accident or anomaly. That's what the difference was. So if you're going to invest, if you haven't already, and maybe everyone in this room already has solar heat pumps, EVs. By the way, in a minute, I want to talk just for a minute about EVs. I know it's outside the scope of making your house energy independent, but I'm not that good at coloring inside the lines. So, but heat pumps first, solar second, in my opinion, EVs third. That's the direction I would go. We can all debate that, but in terms of initial investment and return, you're going to get the best immediate return out of heat pumps. And that's why that industry is growing everywhere. Cautionary note, the people in this room who do heat pumps and solar know what they're doing. You can go to other parts of the state where the heat pump industry is expanding everywhere, and you got a lot of guys that used to do plumbing or used to do electrical, and they've morphed into heat pumps. That does not mean that they know what they're doing. And I just had an installation, that same building I was just talking about. I had to take out the heat pumps and put a new system in because when we had that cold spell, people couldn't stay warm enough. And it's because they put the wrong rated heat pumps in. They put 13-degree rated heat pumps in, and we had 0-degree temperatures. So I had to replace them with 5-degree heat pumps. So when people are selling heat pumps, make sure it's appropriate to your area and know what that rating is. But that's the way I would go. So, you know, we just built a retreat center up in central Maine, beautiful kind of compound, post and beam buildings, super insulated. And we did geothermal in them. I've been wanting to do geothermal for a while. And if you don't know much about it, you put a bunch of pipes down under the ground. Average temperature where that is about 44 degrees underground, year round. Never changes, right? And you don't have to go 100 feet down. It's not like installing a well. 44 degrees. So you tap that when you need cooler, and you tap the heat out of it when you need warmer. Incredibly efficient system. Operationally, it's about 1/3 the cost of heating with carbon. That's a big deal. And these are pretty big buildings, so I'm using a lot of it. The problem is it's expensive as hell to install, right? At the time I was installing these, I could only find 2 companies in the state of Maine that actually knew how to install geothermal, right? It's a small market, and it's expensive to install. So you have to be ready to put a lot of money up front and see the savings over 30 years. You know, these buildings are 200-year buildings, so it will repay itself, but you got to have some money to do it. But I will say this, at least in my limited experience with it, it is perfect technology for larger demand, right? So condo units, 100-unit subdivisions, schools, big facilities that use a lot of electricity absolutely should have geothermal. I just heard for the first time the recommendation that it should be under your foundation. As a guy who manages buildings, that scares the daylights out of me, but that's another matter. Last thing I'll say is on EVs. The technological transformation that's happening with EVs right now is fantastic. We don't see it in the US, partly because we block China from selling EVs. China is developing the most advanced, efficient, and affordable EVs in the world, and it's not even close. They lead Tesla now worldwide and in 20 different countries. They just got allowed into Europe. They just got allowed into Canada. So it's inescapable that this technology will come here. US manufacturers are largely shutting down and retooling because there's no way the stuff that they're building can compete with the Chinese. It's just not possible. I've got a F-150 Ford, love that vehicle. They just stopped producing it. And these cars, on average, I mean, the international standard for EVs now is 300 miles. Many of them now 400. It creeps up every year now. When you get to solid state, as I said before, it's going to be 800 will be the standard, and the charge time's going way down. So different technologies, but that doesn't mean you should wait. Like in 3 years from now, you'll have solid state EVs, okay? Price will be down, they're much smaller batteries, much more efficient. Don't wait, because the thing that's happening right now is the wave of EVs that were produced over the last 5 years are coming on the used market. And there are unbelievable deals for used EVs right now in the $30,000 to $35,000 range. So whatever you can do, do it. And if you have to stretch, stretch. It's really incumbent on people who have resources to make sure you do this stuff, because that advances the technology and brings the price down. I know I've gone beyond what I was supposed to, but thank you.
Thank you. Alan, thank you so much. Any questions for these two gentlemen before we take a break? Yes. Coming back.
I just have one quick one. We have a Rivian and an e-tron. Is there any way that I can use that as battery storage back to my home?
You want to take it?
It's the Rivian, the electric, similar to like the Ford F1 Lightning. I believe you can. I'd have to look at the specific. You're talking about using the like reversing the charge to back to the house from the car?
Correct.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to have bi-directional flow built into the vehicle to be able to do it.
That sounds familiar. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
I don't need it right now. Anytime, before we leave,
Yeah,
no, kidding.
let me take a minute on that one. Some of you may remember a big ad buy by Ford back in 2013, in which they were advertising the F-150, and they were saying, "Well, you can run your house with your Ford F-150." That was one of the most deceptive ad campaigns in the last decade. They didn't know how to do it. They didn't have the ability. They didn't have the staffing. They really hadn't figured it out. It was like a sales goal thing. And many good people have tried to do it. And technically, it can be done. It means you have to change your inverter, by the way. You have to buy an inverter that's a two-way inverter. So I think the answer is no, but you're going to see more and more vehicles now. I don't know if Rivian's R2, the new one coming in, is a bidirectional, but they're going to start building bidirectional into the products, having actually tried them and gotten some experience. But it's not like you just drive the car up and you plug it into your EV plug, and that means it's bidirectional. It isn't. It requires a different technology, a different inverter. It's something we should look forward to, but not something you should expect to find. There may be people in the room who are aware of some model for sale right now that does this, but it's a lot of work to get to it.
So quick question on maybe the advance of technology, maybe not. So the first time we had our house rated for solar, guys came in, and probably you guys, and checked it, and we got like a C, or something that was kind of depressing. It wasn't really going to pay for itself. Didn't make economic sense at the time. I think a couple of trees came down over the course of it. So maybe 3 years later we did it again. Still didn't really make sense, and maybe it just doesn't make sense. But I don't know if the technology is improving such that maybe now it does, or maybe it will, or so. And I don't want to bring you guys out to the house every couple of years, to waste your time. So.
Yeah, it could be, like those factors like shading, roof pitch and angle, things like that, shade cover. Those are the big factors. As far as technological advancements, I think panel wattage is increasing. So you're basically getting more output per panel. That's kind of one of the biggest things that, maybe it could be that your site just might not be ideal for rooftop solar or ground mount or whichever you looked at. And that's why, there's a breadth of solar options for ground mounts, for like community solar for people who, might not own their home or live in a condo. There's certainly options like that. But yeah, not every site is going to be ideal for solar. We try our best to find the ideal site of production, but not everybody has a perfect setup for it. Yep.
Yeah, the takeaway is solar doesn't work everywhere. I just built 2 new buildings. They're in the forest. There just isn't I'm not going to take down more trees. I'm just not. So we're going to build a ground facility because we have 12 acres. We can build a ground facility. But it's not for everybody. And it's a little like geothermal in a sense that if you can build to scale, somewhere and be a part of that purchase, the costs may go down per unit, and you get the same advantage, similar advantages. So I've, by the way, put 2 generations of solar panels on my house. So I still have all of them. But in the 10-year between the first and second, the price went to half, and the ability doubled. Just to get a sense of, so twice as much action, half the price of the original. So that technology has changed that fast.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Hopefully they're going to stick around for a couple minutes. We're going to take a quick 10-minute break. We'll be back at 9:32. If you want to have any other questions for them, please grab them. And I'm not wearing my glasses. What time is it now? 10:20. Yeah. You said 9. 9, okay. Well, I'll study my math and figure it out. But 10 minutes from now, let's come back together, reconvene, and I'll find out what time it is. I did figure out what time it is and what day it is. It is Saturday, apparently. Our second panel is one of the most practical topics for Maine homeowners, and a very big topic with a lot of our clients at Balsam, and that is heat pumps. A lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings about heat pumps in spite of their tremendous efficacy here in Maine. Joining us today are Scott Libby, owner of Royal River Heat Pumps, with over 35 years of experience in the HVAC industry, and Bob Stevens, a Freeport resident, retired attorney, civic leader, and co-founder of Freeport Climate Action Now, who will bring his firsthand experience with home energy transition. So we'll have each speaker share with us some of their knowledge, and then we'll follow that up with some questions and definitely some answers. So please welcome Freeport's friend, Scott Libby.
Thank you for coming out on what appeared to be a snowy Saturday morning, and now it's getting sunny, and all of the snow should be off your solar panels and start producing electricity, right? And Bob, thank you for coming. Bob is not only an expert with the information he brought, but he's my customer, and I see Andy and Naomi and a whole bunch of my customers here, so thank you all. And I guess you should all know that I don't like heat pumps. I don't like heating systems in general. I built this house for my daughter, this dollhouse. She's 27 now, and I think it inspired her because now she's a budding architect at John Libby Houses and Barns, so I think this might have had something to do with it. But I built this before I became self-proclaimed building scientist. You know, before I started thinking about smart membranes and how does the heat move through the wall and where are we gonna run into the dew point? Because everybody's heard of houses rotting and mold, and we're building them too tight, and you really have to be a building scientist to understand what is the best thing for a home. I kind of built this with the idea of modeling it when we didn't have problems. Is everybody familiar with the Tate House out in Stroudwater? You should go see it. It's a museum. It sits up on the hill in Stroudwater, looking all the way down the Fore River out towards like Bug Light in that direction, long before the airport was there and all of that stuff. So anybody know how old that is?
My son lived across the street from it in the oldest house in Portland, mid-1700s and late 1700s.
Right, so it's coming up on 300 years old, and it has no mold because it's not heated. When you're not heating a home, you don't run into the dew point, and you don't run into all of the problems that we've heard about with all the houses that we built in the 80s and the 90s. We didn't have electricity in there. We didn't need solar because there was no need. We ran into problems with housing when we needed to just be more convenient. We needed plumbing in the house. That's when we started needing to heat the house and started to really do things that were not great for the environment. So this house doesn't need insulation. It's 100% thermal bridging if you do have heating in it. But it's also not very good for heat pumps, because it has a giant hole in it. But where would you put a heat pump? We have one, so we can put that right out here. What do you want to do with your heat pumps? Do you want heating? Do you want air conditioning? Who has heat pumps? Oh, great. We're here preaching to the choir Saturday morning. Who has solar? Awesome. Who has done installation projects recently on their home? Thank you all. If Alan's here, he'd be very proud of you, because we're all doing what we can. We get a lot of calls about, I want heat pumps in my home. So we do a lot of programming, because really in my mind, I'm not selling heat pumps. The first thing is I'm selling Royal River heat pumps, but I'm selling comfort. Efficiency, yes, but you have to be designed properly to get the efficiency. What good is efficiency if you don't have comfort? So I will often, some people call it HVAC, I call it air conditioning. In what ways do we air condition the home? We condition the air by heating it. We condition the air by cooling it. We condition the air by filtering it. We condition the air by dehumidifying. What about humidifying? Anybody have a humidifier when they add moisture to their home? So we condition the air by adding humidity, humidifying. To me, it's not just, HVAC is heating, ventilating, and air conditioning. Sorry, Bob, I moved it back so you could see it, but he moved it back up where he can see it.
Just don't erase it so I can see it later.
Okay. So I want to talk about a lot of these things and how it applies to your home. But then Bob is also going to Bob didn't know I was building his house and bringing that this morning. So he's going to talk about how his house is with heat pumps, with solar, and just really talk about his experience, his savings, and his comfort. So with heat pumps, because we want the convenience of a warm house and we want the plumbing inside, we have to heat it. We can do that with a heat pump. We can obviously cool it. Depending on the system, you can filter it. We can certainly dehumidify it. The only thing we don't want to do with with heat pumps is add humidity. And I was going to say if anybody has questions, raise their hand, but I think Jonas is going to say, let's ask questions after. A couple questions did come up. Chris asked a question about R290, which is propane. Everybody understand how a heat pump works? Who doesn't know exactly how a heat pump works? Wow, everybody else, cool. So we have to talk about thermodynamics. You've heard the saying, energy cannot be created or destroyed. That's what makes a heat pump so efficient, is we're just transferring the energy. First part of thermodynamics is heat goes from hot to cold. So if you all put your hands together, are both of your hands the same temperature? Do you feel, is one colder than the other? Anybody feeling that? Like if you drive along and just hang your hand out the window while you're driving, bring that one back in, now you can feel it. I mean, if you want, instead of holding your hands together, just grab the person next to you. No, kidding. But heat always goes from hot to cold. The greater the temperature difference, the faster it travels. So, you know, if you don't have solar and you don't have a battery backup, what happens when you lose power? You panic. You know, 5 degrees, you're thinking, my house is gonna freeze. You know, Scott, drive around the neighborhood and see if you see the CMP trucks so we know when they're coming. Because we know at 5 degrees, your house cools off a lot quicker than it does if you lose power and it's 40 degrees out. 40 degrees, we're Mainers, it's kind of like, yeah, you know, we're fine, you know. That's because the temperature difference between 70 degrees inside and 0 degrees outside, the heat travels faster. So we lose heat in our house quicker. So heat goes from hot to cold. Warm air does what? Rises. Cold air settles. So, you know, this is just the outdoor unit. If I have an indoor unit here, I can almost heat this entire side of the house and the whole second floor. Because this is a center stairway house. The heat's gonna go up. Can I heat the first floor if I just put in a unit up in the bedroom? No, because heat rises. So heat goes from hot to cold, heat rises, cold air settles. It moves by radiation, which you're probably feeling some nice radiation on those windows behind you because we finally have sun. Convection, that would be from like your baseboard heat. And conduction, that's when you touch something that's cold and it sucks the heat out of your hand. Some things cause that heat to conduct faster. Like, who thinks granite countertops are cold? They're the same temperature as everything else in your room. You know, it's the same temperature as the wood, but wood is not as good of a conductor. So the granite pulls the heat from your hands quicker, which makes it feel colder. You know, when you're walking around the house barefoot, the hardwood's fine. But then when you get to the bathroom where the tile is, it's like, oh my gosh, the tile is so cold. No, it's just more efficient at transferring heat. Jump in anytime and save me if you need to, Bob.
Not yet. You're doing great.
So when you get heat pumps, who said it? Alan said, be careful. One of the most important things is the installer, the installation, the design. Most heat pumps, when you're talking, we only do Mitsubishi, but if you're talking Mitsubishi, Daikin, Samsung, there's a bunch of them. You may as well be talking Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Subaru. They're all, you know, world-class engineering, state-of-the-art manufacturing facilities. They all have a 12-year warranty, which is 4,380 days. What's the most important day? Day one, installation day. You know I can take any of those brands and put it in the hands of my installers, and you're gonna get exactly what the manufacturer hopes you're gonna get from it. I can take those same heat pumps and, you know, put it in the hands of, you know, one of the guys that Alan was talking about, and you're not gonna get the same performance. So Design and installation is the most important thing. Also, what are your goals and objectives? We would all love to be net zero, producing as much electricity as we're using. But really, what are your goals? Is it just that your living room's cold? Climate change, is it just that your bedroom is too hot? So don't overthink incentives and tax credits and rebates. Really focus on you, your house, and your goals. Don't go too far, because we get a lot of people that they want a unit up in the bedroom for air conditioning. We live in air conditioning. We go to work, it's cool, it's air conditioned. We drive to work, we drive home, we have the air conditioning on. In the pandemic, when everybody started working from home, all of a sudden we're not working in an air-conditioned environment anymore. There was a crazy drive for heat pumps. The biggest driver was air conditioning. So we would go do a system for air conditioning. Maybe we want the bedroom and this little room here we use as an office. That's where I work, that's where I'm on Zoom calls all day. I can't be sitting there with sweat running down my face. I can wear a shirt and my boxer shorts because nobody knows, but I can't be sweating. And then what do they ask towards the end? What's the rebate gonna be? And it's like, well, did you want anything on the first floor? Well, no, because it stays nice and cool there. It's on a slab, and like Alan was saying, it's radiant heat. And we love it. We love the warm floors. I'm not gonna use my heat pumps for heat. Well, then you can't get a rebate because it's a whole house program. So really, when you're talking heat pumps, you have to figure out, how is the heat gonna move? Can we just put, this is only about a 4 square foot house, so it's a little tight. I think we build them too big sometimes, but this might be too small. But can I heat this whole house with one heat pump? No, because it's broken up by the stairway. You really have to consider distribution. When you go home and look through your house, back when I was doing boilers and radiant and geothermal, this is year number 41. I've done all of it. Everybody has baseboard heat under their windows in every room. So we take the size of that boiler, we'll just say 100,000 BTUs, and we split it up into all the rooms. Heat pumps don't work that way. If they're ductless, the white things on the wall, you can do a ducted and get good distribution from it. But really, every house is a little different. How's your house?
How is our house? Maybe it's my turn to talk? Sure. Anyway, thank you very much, Scott, for explaining and telling me what's happening in my house. How the things that I bought, at your advice, to make it more livable, are operating. And that's basically probably all consumers need to know, is who to talk to about it and what your objective is, and take it from there. When we started out in our house, it's about a 2,000 square feet, one-story house, but we insisted upon a basement because we were moving from a large old house with a barn that we had filled with so much. And we did want to take some of it with us. Thank God for the basement. And we will have to empty it sometime too. But the great thing was that we knew we needed heat pumps. We had good insulation. We had good control of airflow, so that we could do things to produce a reasonably priced heat. Our first mistake, though, or maybe our only one, was the one we put in first, was a subcontractor for a contractor, and it's since been replaced by Royal River Heat Pump. So we have one in the basement, which works well for not only handling the basement, but as Scott explains, the way heat rises, it heats our floors upstairs on the first floor. Then we have a larger unit in our large living space and a smaller unit back in our bedroom. And together they provide what we need. We also have the heat pump water heater, which it saves money and in fact does some dehumidifying too. So that works well in our house. We have the solar that's been discussed earlier. The net effect is that we are saving enough money on our electricity bill to make these pay for themselves over the time that we're going to be living there, we hope. I don't know if I have a whole lot else to add to what's been presented earlier. Oh, thank you. The comfort is what we have in our house that's brought to us by the heat pumps. It works for air conditioning, cooling in the summer, and of course, heating in the winter. And that's a large part of it. Like before, I had to worry about a furnace in the basement. Was it going to continue running? How long were pipes going to freeze around the house? So it's a good way to sort of keep everything at a nice, livable level. Pardon me? Yes. Right.
Why don't I take that one, and I can handle her question about humidity.
All right,
and then you can go over your savings with your whole thing. So how do we dehumidify? How do we get the cooling? I brought the wrong colors, but we'll be okay. I wish that I had paid better attention in high school physics, because everything about how a heat pump works is what the high schoolers at Freeport are learning right now, if they're paying attention. You have thermodynamics, all that stuff I just said. Heat goes from hot to cold. You have evaporating and condensing. When you evaporate something, you absorb heat. If you want to talk more about it, we'll do that later, but and we'll have a Q&A, so you are free to ask questions that you don't already have the answer to. I love to answer questions that you don't know the answer to. But we have a compressor. We compress refrigerant. So when you compress something, we're performing mechanical work. We're making it hot. You know, there's friction, we're compressing it. So we have a hot gas. That goes to the indoor unit that you have hanging on your wall. And this is really simplified. We're blowing air across the coil. We're absorbing that heat as it goes past it, and we're blowing heat into your room. Magic, right? We're blowing heat into the room. Where do we get that heat? We got that heat from the outdoor unit that's sitting outside. Heat goes from hot to cold. It's cold out. It's 0 degrees. How can there be heat? Heat always moves from warm to cold, no matter what temperature we're talking about. So if I said that I can make that coil in that outdoor unit minus 30 degrees, That's cold. That's really cold. It's much colder than 0 degrees, right? So any heat that's in that air, as we're using the fan to blow air across this, I'm going to absorb heat from the outside air and capture it. So the air blowing out might be -20. I did a job years ago where I did 7 single zone heat pumps lined up along this building, and I parked in the driveway, and I had to commission all of them. It was like 5 degrees out. So when I got out of my truck, which one did I do first? I did the one that was right near my truck. I'll get that one going. And then I kind of played hopscotch. And when I got about 2/3 of the way down these 7 single zone heat pumps, I realized now I was back and forth all day in front of these heat pumps that were blowing out -20 degree air. So now when I do it, I go to the end one and I start that one, and that way I'm just walking through 0 degree air, not -20, you know. So I've captured heat. I bring that back to the compressor. It's still relatively low, but I'm gonna run it through the compressor, compress it, add more heat to it, and send it into the house. It's just the opposite. In air conditioning, we're making this the cold coil, so if it's 70, we'll say 75 degrees in the room, we might be blowing 50 degree air into the room to make it cooler, and then I take that heat that I captured and I bring it out here. Like I said, I mean, we could do a whole day thing on that.
Thank you.
So there
Thank
are many
you.
types of heat pumps. You have ductless, you have the wall units that go up on the wall. There are floor units, there are ducted units. The one thing that they all have in common is that they have a coil, a fan, and a filter. Anything else is the shape of the box. Doing the wall units or the floor units are pretty much the same skill set. Like Alan was talking about, be careful about what happens on day one. That is magnified when you start talking duct work. You know, so the sheet metal duct work that is blowing the air, providing proper distribution through the house, it's a totally different craft. It's a totally different trade. We have a full sheet metal shop at Royal River Heat Pumps. We design, fabricate, and install all of our own duct work, custom for each job. Not tooting my own horn there, but that is exactly what you want.
Questions for these gentlemen? They're doing such a good job.
Yes, you had mentioned not humidifying with a heat pump. That's exactly what we're doing. Can you elaborate on that?
Humidifying or dehumidifying?
Humidifying with a humidifier in the winter. Is that okay?
Oh, but you're not using your heat pump to do the humidity. You have a separate humidifier.
Right.
That's what you have to do. And that's
Okay.
absolutely fine. When we're talking about adding humidity to a home, I always tell people to watch their windows. Take a look at them. If you see condensation forming on the windows, turn it down. Yeah. Or call window dressers, right? Let me actually, before you ask the next question, Chris, let me answer the one that you asked a little while ago about propane. The way we do all of this absorbing heat and transferring heat and condensing indoors in the winter and evaporating outdoors in the summer, or vice versa, we use a refrigerant. When I started, we were using R12. That was a CFC, a chlorofluorocarbon. Horrible for the environment. Then we moved to R22, which was an HCFC, a hydrochlorofluorocarbon. It still had that chloro molecule in it. Horrible for the environment. Both of those really big global warming potentials. If it leaks, creates holes in the ozone. The ozone is our protective layer. Then we went to R410A, which was an HFC. Great leaps and bounds. We got rid of the chlorine. So now we have a hydrofluorocarbon. Now we're kind of focused on the carbon. So now we're moving to like lower global warming potential refrigerants. So the EPA mandated December 31st, 2025, we could no longer install the stuff that I've been doing for years. Now we need to move to something that's a lower global warming potential. Most manufacturers are either using R454B or R32. Ironically, they both have some level of 410A in them. What Chris is talking about is using propane as a heat transfer medium, which is a fantastic substance to use, fantastic material. It condenses very easily, it evaporates. That's what we're doing all day long. Evaporate, condense, we're moving heat in, we're absorbing it outside. When propane leaks into the atmosphere, it has a very low global warming potential. That is in the future. So for me, I've already been through 4 refrigerant changes. I was hoping that I didn't have to go through this one that we're doing now. I'm done, It has a low global warming potential. For me, and it's very efficient. So I love that Chris brought that up, and I love that there are places in the world that are doing it. The biggest problem with any of it is training and licensing and installation techniques. All of this refrigerant. Who has ever heard of the phrase, oh, I had to have the guy come put more refrigerant in or more Freon in my system? Anybody ever hear that? Should never happen. It's not like oil in your car that just gets consumed, overuse, or like gasoline in your car. It's a sealed system. It should be there forever. So if you're hiring somebody to do a heat pump for you, make sure they're going to install it in a way that's not going to leak. And then it doesn't matter what you use. I have systems that I installed in the mid-90s that are still working. They've never leaked. So that system is truly no danger to the environment because it doesn't leak. You like that, Chris?
Yeah, I would add to it that with these R290 and other refrigerant-based systems, they can have all the refrigerant in the outside box. So it's all sealed at the factory. You don't have to make line sets in the field, and that can be the cause of a lot of leaks. So by just leaving it in the factory, you lower your leaking potential. But yeah, I was paying attention when you said different kinds of heat pumps. And I just wanted to add that Alan brought up geothermal. That's a water-to-water style heat pump. There's also air-to-water style heat pumps.
What is your question on it?
And maintenance, if you could talk a little bit about maintenance of these different type of heat pumps.
Yeah.
When people have cooling issue, condensate, how often should they be inspecting the coil and things like that?
No, great question. The first part that Alan alluded to is when, the topic heat pumps, it is so broad. The ones that we're doing currently, like this little guy here with the units hanging on the walls and stuff inside, those are air-to-air heat pumps. They take heat from the air outside and they transfer it to the air inside, or vice versa in the summertime. There's a new generation, I say new, Europe's had it for years, right? Air to water. They'll They have an outdoor unit that looks similar to this, so they're taking heat from outdoors and they're transferring it to a box inside. That's another heat exchanger, and we're able to transfer that heat from that box to the water. Ideal for if you have a house with radiant heat, or you have those nice kind of European flat panel radiators. There's a lot of talk about, those are both low temperature radiation systems. We're American, we heat the water to 180 degrees. No place else in the world does that. You know, the Germans just laugh at us, you know, stupid Americans, why do you heat the water to 180 degrees? Some of the new ones are coming out, they say they can go up to 157 degree water. We're still a little short, but you also lose a lot of capacity when you're going up to that maximum temperature. Geothermal, you're transferring heat from the ground, like Alan said, you're pulling it from the ground through water, bringing it inside. It's very, very similar concepts, a little bit different. You know, you're not burying a whole bunch of these in your yard. Don't do that, right, Andy?
Yes, for those newer refrigerants, I understand they're flammable. Is there safety measures set aside for the installation and or for the customer resident to recognize if there's a possible danger?
Do you already know the answer to that question? No. Yeah. So yes, they are considered an A2L. They're better for the environment, but they have little red flame stickers on them. This is on TV, so I can't even say it. It's being recorded. We have tried to make that stuff burn. We got some little sputters, but to make it burn in your home, the concentration in the room has to be over 11%. So in a room this size, we'll say, 30 by 50, 1,500 square feet with 16-foot ceilings. How many cubic feet is that? No, kidding. But we'll say, 16-foot ceilings, 11%. So I would have to have that A2L refrigerant, if it leaked out of the system in your house, it would have to fill this room. I mean, the whole floor. Well, I don't have that much in here. So there's really not a whole lot of concern about flammability with the newer refrigerants. However, they are flammable. So if we're there replacing a compressor at your house, we're using a torch outside. The stuff we have now, or the stuff that I grew up with, will flame. This stuff's a little bit more, but it's really, really hard to sustain a flame. R290, which is propane, does that burn? That burns at 1,200 degrees. That's the temperature of the flame on propane. That's hot. That's why I want to go home.
Thank you.
Hi there. We have 3 Royal heat pumps in our home. Our first floor is an open concept, and we have one of the units downstairs, and it does a good job of heating, and we don't use much of our propane. Upstairs, we have 4 bedrooms, and we have 2 heat pumps upstairs, one in the master, our primary, and one in the one over the garage, which is a large room. Is there a way to circulate the heat to the other 2 rooms without having to use our propane when the doors are closed? And
Right. The short answer is no.
No.
Because if you're in your primary bedroom, so if you're downstairs, what temperature do you like in your living room?
around 70,
70. When you go to bed at night, what temperature do you like to sleep at?
probably 68. Well, it depends whose room you're in.
Most people are like 63 to 65.
Right, we don't go that low.
So it's really hard to heat a room to 65 and try to heat another part of the house, especially when the opposite is happening of what I spoke of. The cold, it's falling down the stairs. The cold air is falling down the stairs. The stairs are always a break. The way heat pumps work is it's all fluid flow. People can't picture fluid flow because it's in a piece of ductwork like that or in a pipe. The other fluid that you can picture flowing is traffic. So if you looked at this heat pump on this bedroom wall as being a 4-lane highway, there's a wall right here, there's a little 3-foot door, so now there's a state trooper that's got somebody pulled over and everybody has to rubberneck and see what's happening. So these 3 lanes are backing up. We got a high pressure. That makes the heat pump say, oh, this is easy, I just did my job. Now whatever's squeezing out through here, you know how after that traffic accident or whatever it is on the highway, for a little bit, it's just a few cars getting back up to speed. So that's what's happening with the air from your heat pump. So you really, once you go through a doorway or around a corner, you lose the effect of the fan.
So the solution would be to get 2 more heat pumps.
Yeah, and we have some.
Yeah, I know.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming today. I hope you'll be hanging out for a few minutes. Libby from Royal River Heat Pumps. And thank you, Bob. Bob, you can stick around up there if you'd like. You look good up there.
It's comfortable, but I need some food. Would you
All right.
bring me my sandwich, Kathleen, please?
Kathleen, do you want the microphone?
I ate it. Ah!
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. Some
I
movers.
did have one other thing to say.
Yes.
You got a microphone. Scott had asked about the cubic feet of the room, and it's 24,000. 24,000 cubic feet.
It's the same guy that's keeping us on time. Numbers, dude. Thank you so much, Bob. All right, for our third and final panel today, we're going to tackle one of the biggest and most important questions to a lot of us, and that is, how do we pay for all this? And to talk about that today, we've brought Andy Meyer, who's a senior program manager at FreeportCAN, covering residential weatherization and heating systems, and also Mika Hemming, who is director of retrofitMAINE, which is part of passivhausMAINE. Between them, they know probably just about every program and incentive available to Maine homeowners right now, so I hope you find this section a benefit. Please welcome Mika Hemming and Andy Meyer. Thank you so much.
Is someone going? Oh, there's the slides. Oh, here we go. Miracles happen. Hi, as Jonas said, thank you, Jonas. Thanks, everyone, for organizing this event and coming. As Jonas said, my name is Andy Meyer, and I work for FreeportCAN, and I've been given 10 minutes to go through this, and then Mika will take over. FreeportCAN, if you don't know us, we run all the Maine's energy efficiency programs. We're a quasi-governmental agency. We do 4 things. I was just telling Martha. We offer rebates or incentives to help pay for upgrades to homes. We offer financing to cover the part we don't cover and pay with the incentives. We have lots of neutral information on different technologies, anything related to energy efficiency in a home. And one of the best resources we have for Mainers is a database of 800 independent energy professionals who are licensed, certified, and have all signed a code of conduct as to how they'll work with customers. And we act as the matchmakers between homeowners and contractors, and we've got some of the best contractors in the country. I get to travel around the country, and I come back every time more and more grateful for who we've got in Maine. We're funded several different ways, and our board is appointed by the governor and confirmed by the legislature. So that's who we are. I'm going to talk about 4 upgrades in 10 minutes. The first is heat pump water heaters. Who here has a heat pump water heater? Okay, I'm going to talk about 3 things. No, okay, almost everyone raised their hand. Maine is the leader in heat pump water heaters. 1 out of every 20 heat pump water heaters in the country comes to Maine each year. And we do thousands of customer satisfaction surveys. And though they're actually quite boring, heat pump water heaters are very boring, people love them. We hear what they love about it is they make a lot of hot water. That should be kind of obvious. That is why most people buy water heaters. Most water heaters are 40-gallon. Heat pump water heaters start at 50 gallons. So people already like longer hot showers. They also can save over $500 a year in electricity bills. And as someone already mentioned today, they help dehumidify the room they're in during the summer. I'm going to go for the clicker. Okay, there we go. I mentioned that we have information on things. Well, the information we have on heat pump water heaters is we have information just about the technology, information about incentives. We have a savings calculator, so you can estimate how much you might save with a heat pump water heater. We have that installer locator tool, hundreds of contractors. We have on efficiencymaine.com the best prices in the state. We know where they are. We can tell you what store is selling them for what price. We know because we're partnered with them, and we have a team that goes to every retail store that sells water heaters every week. So we'll tell you where the good deals are. We've got user tips if you have one. There's not a lot to know, but a few tips as to how to get the most out of your heat pump water heater. We got frequently asked questions. We've got plumber testimonials. I mentioned the calculator, the energy savings calculator. You can put in whatever values you want, cost of oil, cost of propane, cost of electricity. You can put in change efficiencies if you want. But this graph here shows the output of the default values, and it shows a heat pump water heater is this low bar down here. Oil is here. Propane, which 4 out of 5 propane dealers will tell you is the cheapest way to heat water. You can see there's only one more expensive way to heat water than a tankless or propane tank, and that's electricity. In this particular graph, it shows electricity at close to $900 a year, that's here in Maine, and a heat pump water heater about $250. So I've mentioned $500 a year. Right now with the current prices, it's much more than $500 a year savings. We're working again. Heat pump water heater incentives, they're usually $1,050 off. Right now, Home Depot and Lowe's are offering a $1,100 instant discount on heat pump water heaters. You can see that you can get heat pump water heaters. They cost about $1,800 in the rest of the country. In Maine, you can buy one for $349 at the Granite Group. And yeah, this is one of the reasons we're the #1 state in the country. And anyone is welcome to the incentive regardless of how it's installed. One of the installers on our list, or a friend, or hire your own plumber, anyone can do it and you still be eligible for the discount. We'll move on to heat pumps. Who here has heat pumps? We already saw, Scott saw that. Scott's got his hand up. Scott knows this better than I because he sells them, but people tell us that they bought them because they like to save money. They like to be comfortable. We talked about that. Some people like it because it's using our increasingly renewable electricity. Some people like them because there's no combustion fumes. If I had more time, I'd tell you my stories. It is nice to have a heating system that doesn't have combustion fumes, no fuel tank, no fuel leaks, no monitoring the fuel, and no heavy, inefficient window AC units to port around. I'm not going to go through the list on heat pumps. It's the same list. It's a different part of the efficiencymaine.com, but we have lots of information on heat pumps. Probably most important is where's the money, what should I do, and who will do it for me. Same type of information. Heat pump rebates, a little more complicated. You saw heat pump water heaters was over $1,000. I'll go through the list here, but the thing to remember on heat pumps, it's not dozens of dollars, it's not hundreds of dollars. Our incentives are thousands and thousands of dollars, and there's never been a better time to buy a heat pump and start saving money and being comfortable than right now. For ducted whole home systems, you get $3,000, $6,000, or $9,000 rebate depending on your income, and people of any income qualify for a $3,000 rebate. And for all other whole home systems, it's the same limit of $3,000, $6,000, up to $3,000, $6,000, $9,000. Rudy, you're scratching your head or raising your hand? Okay. And we've got a really, really nice offer. We don't talk about it enough. For people who are income eligible, live in single-wide mobile homes, we've got incentives up to $12,900. Worded differently, that means someone living in a mobile home can have their entire mobile home switched over to heat pumps and pay either $2,500, one-time deal, or $50 a month for 50 months. They'll more than cover that with savings. Question? Oh, I'll repeat the question if you want. Okay. Okay. Good.
How did this incentive program change at the start of the year?
So the question was, how did the incentive program change at the beginning of the year? And I think you might be asking about federal tax credits. Is that possible? Maybe so, yeah. So federal, there used to be a
I believe there was an incentive program that changed at the start of the year. And then I also, sorry to backtrack, but the heat pump water heaters, there's a few negatives that I heard in consideration.
I'll answer any question if you gotta ask one at a time.
Yeah, let's do the incentive program and I'll
Okay.
talk to you personally after.
Could you repeat the question?
So yes, I will.
you.
So the question is a leading question. How did the incentive program change at the beginning of the year? I don't believe it had, or I'm not familiar with it. There was a federal tax credit that did go away, and that was up to $2,000. And that's federal IRS, and I'm not talking about it because it ended. We used to talk about it, but when it ended, we stopped. So if you installed a heat pump?
I installed one at the end of the year, just before the cutoff. So that is supposed to be lumped on top of this, right?
Yes, that's separate from FreeportCAN. Yes, that's IRS. And you and I could take a look on efficiencymaine.com. I'll help you navigate to what that is. But as you file your taxes, you put it in there. Does that answer your question? Okay. Okay, there is a special promotion that's going on right now, but it wasn't January 1st, so this came out. It just came out beginning of this month. A $500, all the numbers you see here, $3,000, $6,000, $9,000 off heat pump. We have a $500 accelerator bonus that we're offering for any system put in between March 1st and the end of this year.
If we could just...
I'm bringing on the questions. Jonas, have you...
Well, I would love to be able to answer them all, and we will have some time.
You want me to wait?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold off on the questions, and we'll have Nika.
You're the MC.
Thank you.
I'm loving the questions.
okay.
We'll hold them for the end. Insulation, how many? We already heard a lot of people have had their house insulated. If you haven't, you ought to consider it insulated. That's going to not just reduce your heating and cooling costs, not just going to make you comfortable, but insulation has a number of operational advantages. If you have ice dams, you got an insulation problem. That's not a roof problem. If you've got frozen pipes, I grew up, we ran our shower on cold nights. I thought that was kind of standard. That's not standard. That's not okay, and it's not a plumbing problem. It becomes a plumbing problem when they freeze, but it's actually an insulation problem. Cold drafts is kind of standard in Maine, most people think, but it's not actually standard. That's a poorly insulated home. If you have drafts, that can be fixed, and you don't have to fix it with a heating system. And moisture issues, several people were talking about mold and dehumidification. Getting fresh air, ventilation, finding the sources of moisture. Those are all things that weatherization can help. So we have helped fund thousands of homes to insulate. I didn't tell you the number of heat pumps. Scott and others have put in over 150,000 heat pumps in Maine. 1 out of every 6 or 5 homes is now heated with heat pumps in Maine. But we still get questions, do they work in Maine? I said, well, they don't. We'd have heard about it. We have the same type of information on installation, generic technical information, incentives, installer locator, modeling tools. And the installation rebates range from $4,000 for people of any income up to $6,000 for people of moderate income and up to $8,000 for people who qualify for low income rebates. So again, even if you don't remember the exact numbers, it's thousands and thousands of dollars. And even though this is a home show, I'm going to just mention for electric vehicles, we are seeing a transition. Two cars has the same energy impact as a house. So if we're talking about climate, it'd be a mistake to not mention vehicles. People like them. I drive one because they save a lot of money. With today's electricity prices, driving an electric vehicle is like paying $1.95 per gallon of gas. Very, very efficient. They have much cheaper to maintain. There is no transmission. When they go backwards, the motor turns in reverse. There's no muffler, no exhaust system. There's no radiator, no fuel tank, fuel pump, fuel line, fuel injector. There's no cylinders. There's no carburetor. There's no injector. There's barely a motor in there. In fact, in my car, you can't even find the motor. I don't know where the motor is. So there's a lot less to break. Convenience. Charging is one of the best things about an EV. I drove my EV for 9,000 miles and never once stopped to charge it. Now, it's not as big a battery as you might think. It's a regular sized battery, but I charge at home. I come home, I step out of the car, I plug my car in, I go and have dinner and go about my business. And every morning when I wake up, I've got a full car. So it's very, very convenient. Very few service appointments. Again, there's nothing to fix. There's not much to service. The things like wiper blades, wiper fluid. So Bob asked about fires. Let's talk about fire. Tires. They eat tires. Yeah, okay. And so I'm going to talk, we have the same type of information about electric vehicles. We got a really slick tool we just added to the website. I don't have time now, but I'll demo it at the table. You can find eligible cars, and I could show you in Maine, and used cars. I think Alan Karen mentioned. Used EV is the best way to go right now, and we've got a tool to show you where they are. We've got a really good deal on off-peak electric vehicle chargers. These things automatically watch the time, and they stop charging at 5 p.m. They wait till 9 p.m. and they start charging. You plug your car in anytime you want, 24 hours a day, and you'll have a charged car in the morning, but you don't have to worry about peak. You won't be paying peak rates. And the rebates we have on electric vehicles range from $3,000 to $8,000. We have rebates on new and used cars. Remember, used is the best way to go. And we've got some other things, whole home battery sharing. We've got a program we're just rolling out where you can get paid $600 a year. We've heard about geothermal here. We've got rebates up to $3,000. We've got rebates of $50 on clothes washers, and we've got rebates on pellet boilers. And that is my last slide.
Wow, nice job.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Do you want to find the other presentation?
I kind of feel like these microphones, there we go. I kind of feel like Andy might need his own day, like his own session. Everyone got so excited when he started talking. I kind of felt like someone's going to come grab the microphone. But he will be here to answer some questions after we hear from Mika. And at the end, hopefully he'll stick around for a few minutes to answer any remaining questions. Next up is Mika, who is the Director of retrofitMAINE. Please welcome Mika Fleming.
Thank you. All right, hopefully I can compete with Andy a little bit. We'll see. So as mentioned, my name is Mika Hemming. I'm the Director of the retrofitMAINE initiative with passivhausMAINE. Y'all heard a little bit from Naomi earlier this morning. We are a nonprofit based here in Freeport. With retrofitMAINE, we expand beyond Freeport as well, going over to Lewiston especially. And a lot of our programming is also available statewide. So Love that. I'm going to talk a little bit about all of the things we do, and then I'm going to hone in on what I'm pretty sure is going to be what's most of interest to everyone here. So just to give you a little bit of the basics of what we cover here with retrofitMAINE, we do trainings for those in the workforce, those who are interested in getting a little bit more idea of how to do a home retrofit in various different ways. So we are currently collaborating. Naomi also mentioned that passivhausMAINE has a really robust training department. We cover a lot of different subjects in that, and so I've been collaborating with them to build out a new retrofit-focused series that's going to cover all sorts of different topics that we've been hearing about today and then some. So very, very much looking forward to that for anyone who happens to be in that side of things and wants to learn a little bit more about how to get these really energy efficient, more high performance focused retrofits. Highly recommend that. We also have been doing more and more education, outreach sort of work. Obviously stuff like this. I have been going to a lot of different groups around the area and a little beyond to talk to folks about energy efficiency, various different things folks can do from low cost DIY sorts of things in their home that can help a little bit, up to those more and more intense, as we've heard some of the projects today can be. So trying to share a little bit of that information with everyone and kind of cater that to whatever the group's interests are. We also are working on developing a lot of case studies. So one of the things that we hear a lot is we know that Maine homes tend to be older. They're dealing with a lot of old home sorts of things. But what we don't hear as much about is for those of us who are, as many of y'all here in the audience, who are doing these work, these sorts of higher performance, energy efficiency projects, what that actually ends up looking like for the data, for what we can expect cost-wise, for what we can expect carbon reduction-wise. These are a lot of things that folks who are just starting on their retrofit journeys for their homes are interested in, and so we're hoping to try and collect more and more of that data. There are a lot of places that are collecting some. I know FreeportMAINE has quite a lot as well, so we're looking at doing things in a slightly different way, case study basis, so we're collecting data from homeowners as well as from folks who are on the building science side of things doing those retrofits so that we can hear more of these stories of real Maine homes and what that looks like, and also have more conversations, having these kind of buoy conversations that we're having with the state in different ways so that we can help in that advocacy side of things to make sure that homeowners and residents are able to get programs that are truly supporting them to do this work. And then finally, and this is the one I'm going to be really digging into, is our energy coaching program. So with energy coaching, what this looks like is that we are going to help homeowners and residents in essentially whatever ways they really need is kind of how our program is set up. It's rather flexible in that way. What it looks like is essentially we have a whole bunch of different forms of knowledge, and we are able to support folks as we have these discussions. So for instance, obviously FreeportMAINE Trust is the primary way we have, especially financing, but also, as Andy showed, a lot of those other resources that are available on the website. There is a lot on that website. I hear from folks a lot that some of the time it can be a little hard for them to find whatever they're looking for, even if they know in theory that it exists. So that is one of the things that I help folks with a lot, also to just navigate the way the incentives are structured. And then those other resources, obviously previously the tax credits, when they were in existence, that was one of those. There are a handful of other either local or hyper-specific situations that do allow for higher incentives that can add on to those from FreeportMAINE. So if those are at all eligible, I'll bring those up as well. But we have a whole bunch of different resources and knowledge bases that we're able to bring to those conversations to help support homeowners. We're also looking at just a lot of folks, in my experience, are interested in just kind of basic building science 101, energy efficiency 101 sorts of knowledge to be able to have those conversations at whatever level that they're ready to have, depending on what stage in their home retrofits they're looking at. And so we are able to really provide that throughout the entire conversations. One of the other things that I like to highlight is that membership network that we have with passivhausMAINE. We have been in existence for a good while. We get to work with some really great contractors, installers, architects, all the sort. And we have that membership base with passivhausMAINE. We have some members in the room with us. And one of the things that I really like that we get to do is kind of overlay our membership network of folks who very clearly are interested in the high performance energy efficiency side of things with FreeportMAINE's registered vendors list. And so we can really help buoy that conversation depending on what the person I'm working with is really interested in, what their priorities are. We're completely independent. We're also free program with this energy coaching. There's no cost to the resident. Naomi mentioned earlier on, we were able to start this program thanks to a federal award. So we were able to do this as long as possible. It's been really, really rewarding to see some of these situations that wouldn't necessarily be able to happen otherwise if we did have a cost. We prioritize low and moderate income residents, but we work with everyone. It's just kind of like if we're super busy, there might be a short wait list as we kind of get a little bit more settled with the client base. But I'm very happy to work with all sorts of folks, and you can trust that we're not going to be pushing you towards any specific thing because we really support homeowners' priorities. So some folks are going to be really, really focused on decarbonization, right? I imagine especially in this room, folks attending this, that might be a high priority for many. Others might be focused on just what can we do to lower those monthly utility bills, and that is the highest priority for them. And so we are able to adjust the guidance that we give, the coaching that we help folks with, depending on what those priorities look like. So the process, just to kind of run through it really quickly, you're able to sign up. Just gotta hear from you, know that you're interested. You can find us on retrofitmaine.org. I've got a QR code on the next slide, and then I'm over kind of on the way out after this. So you can just pick up our pamphlets there if you would like, and we've got all of our information on there. But we have an interest form that you would just fill out on there, and then I'll be connecting with you so I can learn more about your home, what sorts of things you're looking for. And then we would be able to set up a home visit, go and check out the home. As long as our funding lasts, we are able to also provide an independent energy audit. We are supporting that for residents so that we can really get high-level information and then kind of have conversations beyond that. So either audit report as part of that information that's provided at that next step, or if it wasn't a situation where we really needed an audit, some folks have already had some recently, so I didn't end up needing to do that for some of my client base, but otherwise still doing that site visit and getting a little bit more of a lay of the land, providing some information based off of what those look like and what the homeowner is interested in, having some additional guidance, helping. One of the things that I hear a lot folks are interested in is just being able to know what order of operations they might want to be going down, what makes the most sense logically. The timing of things is very much a priority for a lot of folks to make sure that they're doing things in a way that makes sense both with their budget and with what they want to see as results. So that's some of the sorts of things that I can puzzle through. I can help folks use some of those tools that Andy was highlighting, help connect folks with potential installers, help compare quotes that folks are getting from different installers. Some of the time it's apples to oranges, right? And it can be a little bit confusing to go through. So those are some of the services that we like to help walk folks through. But it very much depends on what all you're interested in. So I definitely have, it's a constant learning for me as a coach as well. But one of the wonderful things is this network and being able to essentially be a facilitator for this work. And so I'm able to connect with folks all of the time in order to find something that's relevant for whoever I'm working with. So that's the short of it, trying not to take too long because I know I'm the last presentation here today, but thanks so much for any interest in this, this is our information. If you're interested in passivhausMAINE more broadly, you can see our website here. Make sure you note the spelling of that, nice and German as the origin of the Passive House Building Standard. And if you're interested specifically in any of the retrofitMAINE offerings, it's retrofitmaine.org. So I think that's it for me. Thanks,
Mika,
everyone.
thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, don't leave, Mika. Andy, are you still here? All right. There were some questions for you, so I don't want you to go far. All right, I think I saw a hand over here. Do you still have a question?
The question, I have two questions. One was dealing with the $500 additional heat pump installation. Is that available for if you only needed one additional heat pump added to a current multi-zone system to get you into the whole home percentage?
Yes, if you have a partial home heat pump now and you want to go whole home, yeah, you come join me. You want to go whole home, then you're eligible for the full $3,000, $6,000, or $9,000 plus the $500 bonus.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. And the other one is in the solar arena. Are there any considerations for rebates in that area for solar installation? There used to be like $1,000 credit way back a couple administrations ago, but that's the only energy efficiency area that I don't see any sort of incentives from FreeportCAN.
You are paying attention. We are the solar rebate organization for the state of Maine, and we do not have any rebates for solar. Nate, though, went through something very important. There is a federal, there used to be federal tax credit for individuals. That ended. There is still a federal tax credit for business-owned heat pumps, and Nate talked about the financing, that they would pass on some of that to you. They keep some, you keep some. So there is, you can follow up with Nate to get more detail on that, or I saw a revision hat here. So that's, but the thing that Nate said is very important is the net energy metering or net energy billing is kind of like a free 12-month battery for solar. And I wouldn't underestimate how important that is. You can make extra electricity all summer when the days are long and the sun is bright, and you can use that electricity or the credits from that electricity 6 months, 9 months, 12 months later. That's a fabulous incentive. And if you have a battery, then we do have incentives that I quickly mumbled of paying $600, $700, $800 a month. That's $6,000, $7,000, or $8,000 over the life of the battery. So be sure to ask about batteries when you're talking with the solar installer. Does that answer your question about solar? Okay. Yeah, thanks for the question. Did I get it? Nate's my coach here.
Thumbs up from Nate.
Okay.
More questions?
Could you go into a little more information on what whole home means? We currently have fuel oil, a heat pump. What would that look like?
Sure. The incentives from FreeportCAN for heat pumps, we used to incent anything. Just one room, as Scott was describing, we had a rebate. And then we said, let's just help people go all the way. So a whole home heat pump, it's just a term that we made up. It's not a different heat pump, but it means heat pumps that are sized and large enough to heat your whole home so you don't use any other heating system. What we found is some people would hear their heat pump working hard in the middle of winter and say, oh goodness, it's working hard, I'll turn it off. And then they would turn on their oil boiler, which worked fairly hard because it was the middle of winter, and they would lose an opportunity to save money. So we just changed our incentive to say, we still encourage room heaters, we think they're wonderful, but if you really want to save money and get your money back, you need to put in a heat pump and use it for the whole house all year long. Does that answer your question about whole home heat pumps? Okay. Yeah, that was a big change a couple of years ago. Question?
Yes.
Or answer?
Andy, can you touch real quick on the small battery incentive program? I think last I heard it was going to roll out next month. Is that still the case?
I'm so glad because I would like to talk all day about the small battery program. So the question is, what's up with this small battery program? So we have launched a small battery program, but we have launched it to companies who run programs called virtual power plant programs. And we have 4 companies that we're negotiating now to sign agreements. What will happen is when you put in a battery, you get an app on your mobile phone to control that battery, and that software comes from your manufacturer typically. So in the next few months, you're going to see more and more batteries have a new button on the app that says, would you like to join Tesla's virtual power plant program powered by efficiencyMAINE? Or would you like to use Franklin Whole Homes virtual power plant program funded by efficiencyMAINE? You'll say yes, and it'll say, okay, do you have any parameters you'd like to set? How full you'd like us to charge your battery? How low you'd like us to discharge it to? Would you like to sign up for Tesla's or Franklin's Storm Watch so we don't discharge your battery before a storm? And then just kick back and relax. And what happens is we say to those companies, tomorrow from 5 to 8 is going to be peak event. We'll be buying power. If you discharge from your customers' batteries onto the grid, we'll pay you. At the end of each year, we tally up how much electricity did each homeowner contribute to the grid on peak, and we pay the virtual power plant program company. We pay them. They pass on a portion of that to the battery owner. And battery owners could be making $6,000 or $8,000 over the course of 10 years for sharing extra electricity in their batteries with the grid when rates are the very highest. So it's a great way to make money, not just save, but make money by owning a battery, by participating in one of the virtual power plant programs that we are funding. Does that answer the question?
I have a lot of customers excited about this, so.
It's really, I can't tell how excited I am. It's going to be great for manufacturers because batteries are going to pay for themselves. It's going to be great for installers, so we'll have jobs created in Maine. It's great for homeowners. How often do you get paid for letting someone borrow something? And it's all done automatically. And it's great, this is important, it's great for people who don't participate in the program. All of us, whether we have a battery or not, will see lower electric rates and a more reliable grid because we're going to be seeing electricity distributed. It's already in your neighborhood. We don't need to travel over transmission lines to get there. It's your neighbor's battery. Even if you don't have one, your neighbor's battery will lower your rate, all of our rates, and make the grid more reliable. So it's very, very exciting, and we're getting a lot of interest nationally of companies who want to participate and offer virtual power plant programs.
Thanks.
Are we on? Okay.
Martha.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm just getting my feet wet here. And I'm embarrassed to say that, but I need to see this whole thing again, multiple times, perhaps. How and when?
You can. I'm so glad you asked that because I was afraid people wouldn't memorize everything. But once FCTV3, Tom Pierce and his team are done editing this, and they might be editing it live, but it will be up online at freeportenergyforum.org. On the internet? Where are you going to see what? freeportenergyforum.org. Kate, is that on the program? Yes.
Okay. Oh, I see it.
I can't see it. I'm glad you can. I don't have my glasses on. All right. And a QR code. Aren't you fancy? Here you are.
Along with this, this battery incentive, would that also be in line with future bidirectional chargers associated with EVs?
Yes. Yes. We don't care if your battery has tires or not. We are, I say P3, purchasing power at peak. And if you've got a fixed battery and you want to contribute electricity to the grid, we'll pay you. If you drove your battery home that night and you want to contribute, we'll pay for electricity that you contribute to the grid at peak. Does that answer your question? Remind me to slip you a $5 for asking that. EVs, batteries are a great source of electricity. You can get them in, roughly speaking, 10 or 20 kilowatt hours. Cars are more like 60, 70, 80. Alan Caron's is 120 kilowatt hours. So cars are gigantic batteries, and we're looking forward to when they all support what's called vehicle-to-grid connectivity. So, yeah, that's a big smiling yes. We'd love any electricity you've got for any battery electricity.
Thank you for that question. Okay, we have one more question and then comment, and then we're gonna.
Okay, so just real quick, I was coming here hoping there was like, if only I had like a coach or somebody could tell me where I should actually put my energy. So I'm interested in whether there's a very low tech thing that we're overlooking that we should all be doing, and maybe this is something you do as a pragmatic matter. Do I turn up my heat pump and turn down my furnace, and how much do I turn up my heat pump and turn down my furnace before that becomes inefficient?
And say, I think this is working. Yeah. So a lot of potential responses. I feel like there are a lot of potential questions in that. I'm so glad to hear that you're interested in coaching. I think that it can be very helpful for a lot of folks. I will say, I guess, first being low-tech solutions. Definitely, there are so many potential low-tech solutions that could be beneficial for folks. Obviously, especially the lower cost, options are not going to get you quite as much bang for your buck, but there are going to be quite a number of things that folks can do that are really, really accessible. And then there are things that kind of slowly build on top of that, more moderate costs, and then getting into those more high-tech solutions, or still lower tech with like insulation and air sealing, getting that weatherization done, but still more expensive projects typically. You see, we have window dressers here. That's one of those ones that's a lot lower cost for getting your window inserts and having, if you've got those really leaky windows, that can be really beneficial. There's a lot of other very easy little air sealing things that a lot of folks just simply you don't always get to it. I think we all have very large home project lists, so a lot of those ones can be really beneficial as well. There's also even some DIY weatherization work that folks can do if the high cost is super prohibitive for them to get that done professionally. So we can definitely have more specific conversations depending on what's of interest. Please feel free to sign up. For your other kind of question, the side of talking about heat pumps, these are different systems you do, and I'm sure Andy could also talk a little bit more about it, but if you are putting in heat pump system for an efficiency main credit, not only does it have to be whole home, but you do have to be using that as your primary heating source. And so that does mean you do have to turn down that oil. You cannot be on gas. If you have a heat pump system and you were previously on gas, you do have to remove that account. So there's nuances to all of that. And then it is meant to be, and I'm sure Scott can also elaborate more if you have any specific heat pump questions, but it is intended to be a set it and forget it sort of system. You are going to set that for something that is comfortable in the home. So it might be for, a first few days or that sort of thing that you're finding what that actually is. Some of the time it's a little bit higher than you expect because those systems often are taking the temperature higher in the actual room. But you're going to set it, and then in theory, you don't have to mess with it anymore, which is one of the great benefits with heat pumps.
Thank you
Hopefully
for the question. Thank you, Mika. Just quick comment from Scott Libby, Royal River Heat Pumps.
It was just, I had just mentioned it to Jonas. A lot of what we've talked about here today is super accessible, the right thing to do. I talked about the heat pumps having a 12-year warranty if it's registered within 90 days of installation. So when you have an installation done, don't hesitate to ask your installer for that warranty certificate, because if it didn't get registered, it's now 5-year, 7-year warranty. And you're all excited because you're gonna save money and get a rebate. If you don't have it registered and you have a problem, all that money can be gone pretty quickly. And everything we've talked about, I think except for maybe the plug-in solar panels, all of this work requires a permit. So make sure that your installer is pulling a permit. Yeah, I mean, it's super important. Get it inspected. You'll find out if you try to sell the home, or if there's something worse happening in your home. So make sure that some contractors will say, oh yeah, you got to pull a permit as the homeowner. How many permits do you pull? The contractors do that work every day. They're super efficient at it. They should pull the permit, and it should be included in your quote.
Thank you so much, Scott. Andy, Mika, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming today. I'm always impressed by... Hi, were you waving to me?
I want to make sure we don't miss, because this is a perfect opportunity to give a spotlight to window dressers and to give a spotlight to passivhausMAINE, FreeportCAN, and others who are putting together a window dressers event. The build will be in October, but honestly, the community organization and involvement is right now. So heads up for anybody who wants to be involved in that community build to really sign up now. I know Desiree's taking names. Mika also certainly will take names. And talk to your neighbors, people who maybe want those, the inserts actually in their houses, but then also people who have resources for just doing the organizing. There are various things. It's meal organization, it's development, finding fundraising to support the whole build, measuring in people's houses, as well as the build out, which is actually in October. So all of that organizing stuff happens first. Freeport, we've done it 2 years now in Freeport. passivhausMAINE has borne most of that responsibility, and we're really excited to engage more of our community partners to lighten the lift for us and also just get more partners.
Thank you. Has everyone signed up for the raffle that we have going? If you haven't, now is your last chance to sign up for the raffle over there at the table. It's for a $100 gift certificate for Bow Street Market. So if you eat food or drink beer, might be useful to be part of that. I'm going to give you just a second to sign up for that raffle if you haven't, while I thank all of you for being here, and also all of our vendors that have come today to share information and answer questions that you have. I'm sure you did not get all of your questions answered, and we always hope that these programs are somewhat of a jumping off point for you, a beginning for some of you on a new venture. So I would like to thank specifically Representative Sachs, Nate Kronauer, Alan Karen, Scott Libby, Bob Stevens, and of course Andy Meyer and Mika Hemming, and the representatives from each of the organizations. I'm very grateful that you're here today, and I hope you, our guests, have taken a moment to thank them for being here and find out what information they have to share. I'd also, again, like to thank our event sponsor, Acadia Insulation. I didn't see anybody from that organization here, but I just want to say thank you to them. I know they'll look for this on film and wonder if we thought of them, and we're thinking of you very warmly. Kate, are you ready to rock and roll? All right. Who's going to pick the name? It can't be me because I put my name in there 5 times. It'll look bad if my name comes out. Oh. Dave Palm, he's here. He also put his name in 5 times. So again, thank you all for coming, and follow up with these wonderful people that have come today to give us some answers, and I hope you have a safe trip home, and I hope we see you at our next event. Be well.